Hello, everyone. It's me, Chris Hewitt. We're here with Livelihood News. I'm the director of the Hudson Valley Current, and I'm wearing my new face shield that I got donated from an amazing effort at Bard College. And Kevius Avery is here with me. He goes to Bard and helped us get these shields. Kevius and I have been working on Livelihood News for about 8 weeks. This is our 8th show. And David Cagan, our director of member engagement, just joined us.
Hello, and I'm in the other room, the meeting room of the Current Market.
Nice. This is a little bit uncomfortable. I'll wear it if I ever have to go to a protest again this week. So how's everyone doing out there? We've had a interesting week, a difficult week. Last night I had the opportunity to address the town board in the town of Rochester and make a statement about supporting the voices that are unheard in our communities and talking about human rights and equality. We have a whole series of talks next week about money in order to really dive into what money is and how it affects us. But today we are starting with David because he's going to be talking about our resilience market, and I'm here in the kitchen side of our new space in Kingston, and David's over on the market side, all the way over there.
Hello. Well, we've got all kinds of things brewing here. We're just waiting for the next phases to allow us to open up our market. It's going to be education oriented, where everything that we offer is going to be highlighting our membership, the people that are selling and their goods and services for Currents, as well as the cafe that we're going to have. And so we're building now. As you can see, we're installing the kitchen. We're getting items in. There's a lot to do. There's plenty to do to make this happen, but it's pretty exciting.
Do you have any new items in the market this week? I think last week we talked about all of our new plants that came in.
Okay.
One exciting thing is, did you see the menu items? The hot prepared meals are back in the market.
Oh, they're back. Yay.
Mm-hmm. So if you have a menu near you, you could read what that's about, David. And for a couple of weeks, we took a break on the prepared delicious foods in our market because we were switching to a spring menu. We're very much about farm to table and supporting local farmers. So last week, Kevius, David, and I went and dropped off about 100 chairs to Seedsong Farm. We moved out of our old location and couldn't use 100 chairs, and Creek Iverson was amazing. He took up the 100 chairs. He's excited because they have events at Seedsong all the time. But Kevius, how'd you like that old farm vehicle we got to drive?
That was quite the experience. Definitely one for the books. I mean, the journey was fun. I think any trip is amazing when the journey and the destination are both equally as exciting. You know, to ride in the truck that we did from the city, that was a first. That was definitely a first. But I definitely also enjoyed the mission of Sing Song and just meeting all the folks there and knowing their contributions to the community. That was just absolutely amazing. So I had a fun time, and thank you all for that trip.
We had those chairs donated to us, and we then passed them on to Seedsong Farm. So it's just a giving opportunity, and you know we win by them having chairs. So it's just a great way to form community.
Last year they had a festival. They have many festivals, but last year they had a festival when we brought our first 100 chairs there, because we got 200 chairs donated to us, and they just don't fit the feel of our new space. So we were able to pay that forward. And the festival last year was a focus on Native American rituals and usage of land and Three Sisters and the different way that Native Americans used plants in reciprocal ways that were regenerative and healed the earth. And so it was called Voices of the Earth Festival. And that was actually the first time we got going with our catering and hot food preparation. We had a stand there. We sold everything for Currents. And that's what's interesting about having this kitchen space. We're calling it Tilda's Kitchen, and we're following the state guidelines about when we can open. And so it's a little bit of a flexible open date, but we know we want to celebrate with you all on July 4th. I have a July 4th party every year, and I would like this one to be the biggest celebration that I've ever had, because it's my birthday and I'm an Independence Day baby.
Pizza.
Lots of pizza, celebration, maybe barbecue. It might be all free because we might not be able with social distancing to have everyone come in. And so the food will be sponsored. We're gonna have a lot more details about July 4th. But one exciting thing is I have a good friend of mine, Nancy Ostrovsky. She's an amazing artist, and she usually paints live to jazz musicians. And so she's a current member, and we can find other current members who play jazz. And Nancy wants to come into our space. Actually, it's the white space behind you, David. You see how that's a chalkboard? Nancy is known for her black canvases. And when I first met her in 2001, she came and volunteered her time at a party we had in Accord called the Masquerade Ball. At the time, my sister, Melissa Hewitt, my wife, Nicole Fenichel Hewitt, and I were publishing a publication called The Movement Magazine. And that was a slight transition from Express Magazine that we started in 1996. Express Magazine was an activist publication about society and culture, environment, health, spirituality, and music and the arts. And so we started that in 96. We were in 22 states and all across Canada on newsstands. And it was just the beginning of what I see as movements that have evolved today. And they were evolving at that time. And we were really, as college students, passionate and dedicated to activism and making a difference in society. And so Express Magazine was, for us, the voice of Generation X. It was the press of us X people. So what I love about Generation X is we've always been a variable, and the boomers couldn't identify us and they couldn't label us, and it's still hard to label Generation X because we're still a variable that is hard to understand. And I think it's because of what's happening now. The Great Awakening requires people to embrace that awakening, and an awakening can take decades, and it has.
Yep.
So in 2001, my family moved to the Hudson Valley, and we rebranded, we changed Express to be the Movement Magazine, and the slogan was, "It's happening." Well, sometimes you do things a little bit before their time because it's actually happening now. And that was in 2001. We published it for about 5 years until we became too busy creating and raising young babies. So that is the slight history of my publishing, which then eventually led to Country Wisdom News and Livelihood News.
I'm
This is
online.
an extension of
I
Livelihood.
don't know what I don't know.
That reminds me, David, I could tell you're about to jump in and say something very important, but I'll do a little station break and say, this is Livelihood News, and our publication is livelihoodmagazine.org. We also have satisfyhunger.org, which is our ability to share abundance and resilience in our community. And hudsonvalleycurrent.org is our ability to exchange abundance and resilience in our community. And so livelihood is about learning about abundance and resilience.
Yeah,
David?
and Chris, I just want to mention we've got a few new members that we're excited about. One is Rose Red and Lavender, which is a bouquet shop making, during the pandemic, they had to reinvent themselves, which is what this generation is all about. I love the idea that Generation X started out not knowing what the X was, and now they're finding out, and we're all finding out, and that's pretty exciting. I'm Generation B, which is a few letters before, but I'm really excited to get on board with what Generation X is doing. So Rose Red and Lavender had to reinvent themselves. They became an online flower shop, and that's Kimberly Sevilla, and you can go to shop. You can find her on our profile. Come become a member. You can find her on our profile. Another new member, Kingston Midtown Rising, is on board, and Frank Waters is leading as the executive director. We're so excited about that. We're right here in the Midtown. He's in the Midtown. We saw him just yesterday strolling by with his family, saying hello.
And look, speak of the devil,
What?
he's here.
I am the devil today, right? No,
Oh, I can't see him. Oh, there he is.
so bad. How's it going, guys?
Frank, it
Man,
was great to see you yesterday.
You too. You too.
Yeah. With your kids.
Hi, Frank. It's so nice to see you.
Hey, what's up, man? I'm sorry I'm late.
Oh no, you're great. You're great. Thank
No,
you.
we just switched
Thank you for
places,
coming
Frank.
in.
It's okay. I started.
And the
Okay,
cool
cool.
thing is, he was just saying, one of our newest members is Kingston Midtown Rising. And by member, we also mean a user of the currency, the current part of our organization that's strengthening and building strong main streets.
Yep.
Right.
Your ears must have been ringing, Frank, because as soon as I said that, you went pop.
I felt it. I was like, oh no, I gotta go. Well, Chris texted me too. All right, fine.
Yeah, so Kingston Midtown Rising is a new user. They're on with us, and can't wait to be trading currents with you and to be doing everything that's happening here in the Midtown with you.
Yeah, we're very excited to be able to use the currents and, you know, spread them around, get people more informed and educated about them, and begin to get some items that folks are interested in. I mean, you guys have the cafe coming up real soon right there on Broadway, which is beautiful. So
Yeah.
right in the heart of things.
And Frank, you could sell the Red K hats and the Red K hoodies right online. We can, and hopefully we can pay them with currents and participate and maybe make donations to Midtown Rising also with currents. So find ways of getting local currency to Midtown Rising here in Kingston.
Yeah, that'll be great. I think we've been doing some already through my Kingston kids. So that's been, you know, really good. And it's nice to see people use the currents. And this is the time. The more we use them, the better it'll be for all of us. So, you know, we'll begin to come up with some new ideas and some things on what we can have available for the community, you know.
Yeah, I think a big first step is our collaboration. And I was talking about July 4th before you hopped on. And my hope is still to have a party, whether we're open or not, because of the phases of the opening. But
Right.
today we spent a lot of time on permits and the state regulations. But I love July 4th celebrations, Frank. So we got to do something.
Yeah, July 4th is coming. Folks want to get out. I mean, we had a little taste. I'm sorry. Do you see me? Oh,
Yeah, you're back.
we had a little taste Wednesday when we were over at the park. Did you guys make it over there to the march?
Academy
Yes.
Green?
Yeah, with so
Yeah.
many people. There's no
Yeah.
way we could run into everybody. But yeah, you know, and it was great. It was safe.
Yep.
You know, so we got a taste of what it's like to be back out in the public, you know, at a gathering. So hopefully by July 4th, we'll be able to make that work, you know?
Yeah. I didn't see a single police officer. Actually, I saw one. He was going around sort of in the back streets, putting different, you know, those wood blockade things, I guess, to direct traffic the way it was going to go around. But on the march itself, I didn't see a single police officer. So I don't know if that was the experience you folks had, but that felt really good.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was very wise because in Poughkeepsie, they actually had riot gear and riot police.
Well, I heard that they were there. I personally didn't see them. I parked down like on Pine Street, and as we left, I saw them as far as the burial ground and even by the Boys and Girls Club. But I did see some posts that they were around in certain areas of, you know, of the march. But it wasn't any incidents, and I think that's the most important, you know, piece of it.
Yeah. I think when you came by yesterday, Frank, it was really great to talk, and we actually talked about how one thing that I see as beneficial right now is I'm feeling, and I think people are feeling, more comfortable to talk about difficult issues. We need to talk about things to get better, to heal, and as I mentioned earlier, I read someone talked about this as a great awakening, and so. If you guys don't mind, I can read my statement that I made to the town board last night in town of Rochester.
Oh, and I want to hear their response too.
Okay, let's talk about that too.
All right.
Because it was interesting. My statement was short, but my goal was to then discuss a peace force instead of a police force. Video. Oh, thank you. So in these times of unrest, which I view as a great awakening, I think I'm going to find the one that talks more about we, because this is about we and not so much I.
I don't know how you find time to do all this stuff, Chris. You're on the town board, executive director of the Hudson Valley Current. You're starting a market. What else? You know,
Raising some kids.
Raising kids.
Well, that's because I actually started something interesting yesterday. I told Kevius, when I was a young activist, I'm really sad that leaders are murdered for when they speak up and become active. And I told my wife, who was also sad, that I'm willing to die for the movement. And this was in the 90s, I think. I discovered this week I'm willing to live for the movement, to make my life about this. And so that's why I'm involved in politics. If I'm gonna say something about the towns, I should at least show up to town board meetings, but I became so involved since 2004 in local politics, particularly in the environment. I was on the Environmental Commission since 2004. I'm in the process of building a 34-acre park in the town of Rochester, which is a permaculture park. But I'll read this paragraph because I think it's very important. In these times of unrest, which we view as a great awakening, the Hudson Valley Current would like to reaffirm our commitment to promoting social and economic justice, recognizing the value of all people, and providing exchange opportunities to create a just economy. We will continue to recognize and uplift all individuals, but specifically those most impacted by injustice and inequality. And I just love that this message was able to be at a town board meeting where it was almost like the whole town forgot to talk about it for a minute, and then it shifted the whole conversation. And that's why it's important to make statements, I think. And thank you for your help, Frank. I think it's important for me to learn. I need to be sensitive and caring about everybody, and I appreciate having a friend like you.
Thank you. You're welcome. I appreciate it as well. You know, it's learning on both sides. I mean, where did the conversation go after you made that statement?
Well, the nice thing is, for months now in our town, we've been analyzing the constabulary. The constabulary is like a mini police department, and our officers have a gun on their hip, they have a vehicle, they pull people over, they give tickets. And so we call them peace officers. And that definition of a peace officer comes from the state. So town boards follow state guidelines and rules. And so if they say a peace officer is X, Y, and Z, then we have to do X, Y, and Z, including having them carry guns. They're also court officers in our town court. And so I think every court has officers with a gun on their hip. But what I brought up is, if we call somebody a peace officer, then they should actually be trained in peace by professionals who know about satyagraha, which is the training mechanism and philosophy that Gandhi created, which got India to get England to leave in 1947 with no weapons. And I think that's amazing. Or did the peace officers learn about MLK and those efforts of nonviolence? Do they know about Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee or today's modern trainees? You know, are they actually trained in peace, or is it just a word? That's what I thought. And it was good. We have 5 Democrats on the town board. First time in the history of Kerhonkson and Accord. Town of Rochester is Kerhonkson and Accord. It's a little confusing because of the city of Rochester, and there's no town called Rochester. So who the heck knows where that came from?
That's funny.
Yeah.
I like that. I really like that initiative, Chris, because like I know for me, when I was growing up, there was always instilled this fear of the police. You know, these are people who are supposed to protect you, right? And I like that you're taking it to a human-to-human interaction versus like, hey, I'm gonna grab my gun and this gets out of hand, because there should be no point where anyone fears the police, that anyone fears that anyone, regardless of your title, that's supposed to protect you, you fear them. You know, you don't fear your parents, you don't fear your friends. And it's just like, I think you're making a huge step in the right direction, and to said, like, let's take away titles from society. Let's look at people and let's create policy. Let's create relationships based on that. And that just goes into like, we need a new system of society that recognizes people as humans and not people as titles. So kudos to you. That was really
beautiful.
So Chris, I don't want to assume. So I'm just trying to paint the picture.
Yeah.
What does the council look like? Like, what's the percentages of people of color and white folks there in the council and on the board and in the room?
It is a town board of 3 white men and 2 white women. And one thing that came up is we've asked 2 retired police officers to review our constabulary policies to see should they be giving out tickets. This is something that's been happening for months and not related to George Floyd and other Black men who have been murdered for no reason. But it's just something we've been evolving to help it be less onerous to have a 3rd police agency in my small town. We have sheriffs, we have troopers, and we have a constabulary. And so maybe we don't need them pulling people over to give tickets. That's the purpose of this review. But I think the percentage of people of color out of 7,500 in Kerhonkson and Accord is about 1%. It's a very white little rural town just south of Kingston, a half hour. But part of the point is, are we all being trained in racial sensitivity properly?
Right.
You know, and are the right voices at the table? If 2 retired police officers are reviewing our policies, is that the right group? So that was a big part of the conversation. And so we did pass a resolution to have the policies reviewed by those 2 men. But a fellow councilwoman and I decided to create a community forum, which we're going to be announcing in just a couple of weeks, where we want to invite Tyrone Wilson, the county's Commissioner of Human Rights, legislator Lynn Archer, who represents our district, and at least 5 to 10 more people at a panel of discussion, the community with open questions. And at first there was some resistance, like, why are we getting so many voices at the table, when it's more like, it's not so much about the regulations in particular, but it will affect the regulations. It's about the conversation.
Right.
You know, it occurs to me, I'm just going to come up with this random thing. What if, you know, how an organization has an HR department, and the HR department is there to represent the employees. So the employees and the management of the organization, they're having some issues, and the employee can go to the HR organization. What if the police department itself had some constituents who were there to specifically represent the people that are being pulled over by the police? Like, that's their job, is to, okay, let me take this person's side. Let me see what's going on. Let me act as an HR to mediate, to do that, and to be focused on that. And that's what they do. I don't know, just a random
question.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what they do. I mean, I'm not an expert in this field by any way. I've just been, hearing pieces of it through the conversations. But I know, you have your police commission, that reviews some of these components. And then you have, I believe, actually, I have it up right now. I just want to get the name of it correctly, but it's like a community advisory board, that would go and review, those challenges and situations. And it's about, being able to create laws and regulation that the community has input on. We're the ones that's being affected, all of us. So we should be able to have input on that, and on the way that these officers are disciplined as well. I think that's only fair, and if it's done in a proactive way, then that makes it, that much more effective. You said, you've been working on this already. So as you continue to do that work, now it's on everybody's radar. So now it's even more important to be done, but it definitely needs to be done, and people need a voice and they need to participate. But I think another part of it is you know, and I mean, you know, it's even more in your area of only having, say, 1% of people of color. You know, sometimes it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. You know, people like, hey, I don't see any issues. You know, why are we changing? Why are we even talking about this here? You know, but it exists, and
That's a good
it's a
point.
lot of challenges that's on people's heart, but they don't even realize it because it hasn't been brought up, as you know, Chris.
Yeah.
You know, and as you have those conversations and feel the pain and challenges, it's something that has to happen. But people have to be willing to be open-minded to even acknowledge that there's an issue in the first place.
Yes. One of my favorite signs at the protest this week was, if you're not okay, I'm not okay. And the fact that we can ignore that someone's not okay is white privilege, as we know. And I'm excited that Noble Foundation is so interested in funding people to go to the Undoing Racism workshops that have been coming every year. So David went last year, I went the year before. We have 3 trainings in our budget every year now. And it was eye-opening. You know, I've always been a loving person, but didn't realize, I knew I was raised racist. I realized that once I learned about white privilege in college, but most people never learn about white privilege. So I had that opportunity too, because I took intercultural communication and they taught us about white privilege through that. And so I just want to define racism based on what we've learned in that workshop, because it helps people a lot understand the difference between hate, bigotry, and racism. I define racism as racial bias plus power. The power component is the racism component. It's a structural system based on power. So
right.
I also learned a lot from Martin Dunkley, the president of Seasoned Delicious, with his wife Tamika, and also the new director of Harambe. He taught me that the average salary of a Black person in America is $18,000. And the average salary of a white person in America is $180,000. So that is a statistic that can start this whole conversation. What's wrong with that picture?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, just speaking, I think to tie in like what everyone's saying and why this engagement call is so important, is where that power comes from, as we see in that statistic, is the financial leg up, right? Because the police department, you know, is just funded partially by your state taxes. That, you know, if you're not contributing your state taxes to there, you don't have a table in the economy. How could you have a table in police reform? How can you have a table in your state government? How could people feel like their state government is approachable when financially they don't have a stake in it? So it's like, how do we create a system where everyone has a stake in it? And that's why I think we're at a really, really dope place with the current, is we're implementing a local currency that you can't just get in and get rich off. You know, it takes everyone to invest. In order to earn, you have to personally engage. You know, that's a whole different system. You know, just imagine years down the road, you know, when we're now paying taxes in currents, we have each individual a say-so in our government, because everyone is starting on the same level. I think that power comes from that financial disadvantage that marginalized groups come into the equation at. And so, as I'm a current member, I love the current, as all of us are. So I just want to get perspectives from David on your end. What is the difference between engaging in the economy with the dollar and engaging in the current? And what have you found in current members, that extra oomph that the current provides and that extra voice, and even from the supplier side? And then Frank, I just want to know, how is it to be a member of the current? Like, have you noticed any difference? Just how do you spend your currents?
And before both of you dive in, I just want to remind everyone who just tuned in, we're on Livelihood News. Our publication is livelihoodmagazine.org. Our way to exchange abundance and resilience is hudsonvalleycurrent.org, and our way to share abundance is satisfyhunger.org. David, do you remember the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that the difference in a lot of large organizations, there's a leveraging of labor. You know, this is something that's pretty common knowledge, that a lot of people are working jobs at $10 an hour, and then there's some management jobs that are making a whole lot of money. And oftentimes those management jobs aren't even in the town. So the first thing that the Current does is it overcomes that by keeping the money in the town. So if you have a large organization and some of the employees are living locally and they're doing the work, but the profit on the merchandise, the profit that's going to the executive management is leaving the town, then all you have are some people making relatively low wages, and a lot of the profits of this huge organization that has money to brand, to be on TV, to make their name known, to be in the best locations, to bring in all of the business. Well, we're trying to change that. We're trying to offer people a way to trade currents, and those currents are obviously transferring here in the Hudson Valley, because only those that are account holders are receiving. Anyone can be an account holder in the area, but it's all happening in the Hudson Valley. So the currents are moving within that. So if you, I don't have the chart directly in front of me, but there was a survey done in which they said, okay, if there was a dollar, a US dollar that was going into, let's say, a big box store, what percentage of that stays within the community? And I think it's something around 30% or 30 or 40%. Whereas if you pay with a current, well, it's 100%. 100% of that money is going to stay in the community. So that's building wealth in the community, and that's huge. And so that's, I guess, one answer, Kevius, to your question.
And that study is called the Go Local Indie Impact Study that rethinklocal.org did when they were around the area. Frank, how has it been to use the Current? And I think you've sold clothing with Currents, and also we worked together on the Black History Passport.
Yeah, we did. When I finished that, I want to say something in regards to Black wealth too. But yeah, so I've been on both sides of the Current. One as a member having Currents, and mainly I use them at the luncheons. So that's always good. I've been treated to lunch from my son, my dear son.
Yep.
That was a good day.
Been good. So and they're really great lunches. They're really great events. It's not like, oh, you're just getting something, to spend it with. It's a really valuable and informative gathering, and the food is really great. So it was a great experience, and it felt almost like it felt very unique. It felt very unique and exciting, because it was like, and of course you did take cash, but I kind of felt special, like, oh wow, I'm able to attend this, and
that's actually the only thing we never took dollars for. That was Current.
Oh, you didn't? Oh,
Wow.
okay. You see that? So that was really nice, and I got to meet other Current members like Radio Kingston friends and so on. So it was a really nice experience. And then on the other end, as being as being a seller and having clothing items, and even with the passports, it gave us an opportunity to assist people when they had Currents and give them a product that they really wanted. So that really felt good. And we also was able to utilize those Currents again, and then go, and use them for other things. So as people are using them, people are being educated about money and about currency in our area, and how it's affecting us all as a community. And I think that's the great thing about this. And we're talking about doing new programs with kids, and getting them involved with entrepreneurship by using the Currents. As you already know, Chris, and you guys talk about it all the time, people don't even understand what money is, and how to utilize money. Unfortunately, there's a major group in our country that has mastered this technique. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they've created lots and lots of power. and it has, and it has suppressed and marginalized many communities. But one of the ways that we can, kind of combat that and think about this right now today, as the attention is on, Black America and the systematic challenges that we're going through, is that we have to start thinking about, Black wealth right here in Kingston. We can't solve the whole world, but if we can do what we can in Kingston, just like the Current is here in Kingston, then we can start to make change. So we have, a community of individuals and allies that's all in this together. Are we willing to help each other and put money up or put currents up, to provide Black wealth, because once this calms down, we're still going to be in the same position if we don't change leadership and we don't think about economic development. And that's what the currency is helping with. So it would be great to begin to look at that and see how, Black wealth can begin to participate in this new development and change generations thinking ahead, not just for today.
Yes, it's beautiful. And what I love is learning about Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is known as Black Wall Street. The first current that was exchanged in 2013, 7 years ago, is still circulating in the mid-Hudson Valley. And the beauty of not having convertibility to dollars, there's a couple of great things. One, it levels the playing field of wealth. You can't be someone who's a trust fund kid whose family had a gold mine out west and poisoned the rivers and destroyed the environment and use all that wealth to buy currents. You have to earn currents. And so everyone is at an equal playing field. You can't be a wealthy person and become a wealthy person in currents. You have to earn currents through a good or a service, or by getting paid by your employer who has currents. And I think that's an exciting thing about currents, because we all become a central bank. Some people, with dollars, this question exists too. Where do the dollars come from? So an obvious question is, where do the currents come from? We don't have any currents at the organization. We're not giving currents to members. It's not coming from our central bank. Each one of us here on this call is a central bank. And the analogy I love to use is, there's plenty of money to go around. If each of us can issue currents, because we can go below zero, we have an interest-free line of credit. Every time we go below zero, we create new currents. And there's no fees, there's no interest. It's just me as a central bank issuing currents into the community. So if I go to negative 100, the community expects me to earn currents again. That's called reciprocity. So I have to be maybe a gardener and plant someone's garden or weed some weeds to earn back to zero or above zero. We're always playing above and below zero. It's a balancing act. It's called a mutual credit system. And so,
well, I just like to jump in, Chris, because, and also to talk a little bit about what Frank is saying, because we do need to have a new conversation about money, and we need to learn together what money is really supposed to be. And so I think it's gathering together in communities and having conversations, such as having our weekly lunches where people come together, have wonderful food, demonstrate community, get to know each other, and also talk about what money is. And money brings up, boy, it brings up all the deep stuff,
Yes, the secrets come out.
Yeah. And so, and people get uncomfortable, So that's why we need supportive community to talk about what currency is and what it can be. And
that's right.
So that's part of what we're doing.
Frank's wife, Shaniqua Bowden, will be a guest on one of our shows that we're having next week. We're doing something called 5 at 5. It's a webinar series every day from Monday through Friday next week. We'll be talking about money in some way from Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock for 45 minutes. Shaniqua works with Kingston Land Trust, and she's in charge of the Land in Black Hands initiative. And if you'd like to learn more, go to Kingston Land Trust. It's an amazing initiative because it's empowering the concept to think about land and who owns this land, right? And so next week on Monday, we'll be discussing what is money. We're hoping to have a guest from a nearby local currency, Rachel Moriarty from the Berkshire. Tuesday is the evolution of currency. Our goal is to have a Bard professor who is into economic anthropology, so the history of humans relationship with currency. And we're talking back to when salt was used as currency, or polished shells from the Native Americans, all the way up to the invention of flattened metal coins, the Federal Reserve, and cryptocurrency wallets. What the heck are those? We're going to learn about that on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're covering dollars and inequality. And we have a few guests on that. Shaniqua Bowden will be a guest that day on Wednesday, and also Assemblyman Ron Kim. He's an assemblyman for New York State who has introduced legislation called the Inclusive Value Ledger. And this is a concept that will eliminate predatory lending in New York State. So if you get let's say a Social Security check, that Social Security check goes directly onto a card that you can use right away, instead of going to a check cashing place, because people who are unbanked or underbanked, they go to check cashing places, they lose most of their money all the time. Hey, Luke. And the third day.
They have that.
Huh?
Though. I was just gonna say that, yeah, I mean, my father had that, and that was, I don't know, 2007.
Nice.
The Social Security to the card, but again, that was in New York City, so I don't know if that's up here in this area.
Yeah, and it'll be every
benefit. Go ahead.
From SNAP to WIC, anything that the state gives people will go on a card instead of being susceptible to predatory lending. On Thursday, we're covering universal basic income. This is a big topic that Andrew Yang made a national topic, which is exciting. We're going to talk about where the money would come from on a program like that. Where does the money come from for Social Security? Where does the money come from for our $750 billion military budget? So we'll be discussing budgets and money and where it comes from on Thursday. CCP is the current community protection plan that we're creating. And that is actually an expansion of the current. It's really just a mechanism to use the current in a major way to lock wealth and money into our economy. Because as I said, that first current from 2013 is still circulating in the mid-Hudson Valley, and we can find through the economists that we work with which town it's in. It's all anonymous, and we keep all this information anonymous, but it's fascinating that we did a study called Network Analysis of the Hudson Valley Current that shows exactly how the current has moved through our towns for 7 years now. The study was done at 6 years, but it just shows the real benefit. Those currents never leave our region. And so we're at the 15-minute mark. I'll tell you again, this is Livelihood News. You can check out a lot of our information and past articles from our monthly publication, Livelihood, at livelihoodmagazine.org. You can learn about our catering company and our Pay It Forward projects at satisfyhunger.org. And you can learn more about the Current and our economic development agency that's striving to keep money local at hudsonvalleycurrent.org. One thing I wanted to back into is this idea of peace. And please, if anyone else had something you wanted to add, just make a note of it and we'll add on to this. But I wanted to read this really great quote that I found in a book that a friend of mine bought for me recently called The Origins of Wealth. It was written in 2006, just before the Great Recession, which I also call the biggest robbery in American history. And here is a quote from an economist named John Maynard Keynes in his General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money. The ideas of economists and political philosophers, both when they are right and when they're wrong, are more powerful than is commonly understood. Indeed, the world is ruled by little else. So here's an example. About 1700 years ago, Emperor Constantine hired a guy named Augustine, who became Saint Augustine over time. But Augustine was hired by Emperor Constantine when the Roman Empire embraced Christianity as the official religion of Rome. They had to change the original religion, which was a nonviolent religion that included zero violence. And actually, the heart of this of the early religion was its nonviolence and the power of nonviolence and how it's more powerful than violence. Augustine was hired to justify violence to all the soldiers. So in the writing that he created, and there's many writings about this because it was an evolution of Christianity into a violent religion. He said, soldiers can murder someone if they have love in their hearts. And that is the basis of Christianity today. And Christianity is also the basis behind all of our military programs. So again, I'll say, economists and political philosophers, whether they're right or wrong, shape society. Apartheid is an example of when they were wrong. People believed it and lived that way. And so I just think that it's funny how we had to justify violence and say, love, if there's love, then that's okay.
Well, it's such an interesting transition, historically what you're speaking of, Chris. I just want to kind of add a little caveat that not all Christians have hatred in their hearts. Not all Christians are into violence whatsoever. In fact, the local Bruderhof, for example, is very peace-oriented.
I was raised Roman Catholic.
In every group, in every religion, in every group of people, there are people who subvert the glorious ideals of that group and sort of turn it backwards, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I would just add that, even as we look at the challenges that we're going through right now, I think, when you get a lot of folks that have hatred in their heart, at times they try to hide behind religion, because they can use, and it feels like almost every religion, and of course, nothing is as solid as that, but it feels like almost every religion can find some reason or some doctrine to hide behind to justify, the nonsense that they're doing. So I think, regardless of what the religion is, before religion, you're a person, you are a person. And that's the challenge is, if you are a person, then you have to truly look inside your heart and see who you are. One simple phrase my father taught me was so simple: treat others how you want them to treat you. That's it. That is it. That has nothing to do with power, has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with any of that. Yeah. It's just a simple principle, but people don't, and there's obviously a group of people that don't do that, and it shows. Even the ones that try to hide it, it will come out. What's done in the dark will come in the light every single time. So in order for us to truly change some of the situations we're in, which starts with leadership. I mean, look at the president, look at the things that he says. He's so bold. He just doesn't care. You have to change within yourself, within your heart, personally, and begin to look at your values and your morals. And do you have love? We all have love, but where is it? Express it, get to it, dig past the pain, get through the frustration and all those issues that's in your way, the baggage, and pull that love out, because it exists. And religion is supposed to help you, live in that space and remind you. Like, that's why people go to church or to gatherings every week, to constantly remind you with supporters of the same concept.
Yeah, and sometimes we have to feel uncomfortable and vulnerable. When I call you, sometimes I feel embarrassed. Like, I have a really stupid question, Frank. And when I was on your show last Saturday and you played that song, The Throwback, and you're I'm like, I'm sorry.
Hey, you could have surprised me, man.
You never know.
But it's,
I listen to Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer and
I have no idea who they are. You know what I'm saying? But some folks I do know. So, but that's what makes us beautiful. We're different. Some things we know together and some things we don't. But that doesn't make any of us less than the other or less people. And that's another piece. I hope my phone don't die on you, Chris. But I just want to say this piece. You got to remember, African Americans are a culture that's been here 401 years. We didn't want to come here. We was forced here, and we was forced to do and learn everything that we know right now, even the language that we speak, to the clothes we wear, the way we act, and even the thoughts that we have. It's not ours. So we are trying, and we've been trying to fit in to a society that doesn't want us here from day one, and for folks to say, just deal with it, is like such a smack in the face. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think people understand like what's going on in a culture's mind or a person's mind that has just been shut down at every turn, no matter how good you do, you know, or how hard you work, you're constantly just not let in or not accepted, you know, and that's where a lot of frustration comes into play. So for us to be able to feel like we're even a little bit accepted, and you see a lot of it here in Kingston, where white folks are participating and having these conversations and getting dirty and feeling the pain and, you know, trying their best to understand the best way that they can and utilize their privilege in a way that can change the way the world is currently and to fix some of the wrongs that we've been going through. And this is what we have to do. And as white America, it's your responsibility to continue to fight that fight, no matter how hard it is and painful it is. You got to ensure that your counterparts understand that these, you know, that this is not right, and you have to do a better job at opening yourself up and be ready for that change.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm living for the movement, Frank.
Yes. Sure.
This is a great time for me to chime in because I'd wanted to say something about 20 minutes ago. So I did the racism workshop with the People's Institute, and I had done a workshop on systemic racism before that. And the first workshop I took really changed me a lot and really got me thinking about what systemic racism is and how, as a white person of privilege, I'm blind to all of the systemic things that happen, things that are just kind of baked into the system, the way we talk, the way we choose, the way we prefer. And then when I did the workshop, the racism workshop with the People's Institute, it really affected me deeply. And and one of the questions I had, which they answered, was, well, you know, what am I supposed to do? You know, like, you know, the sense, you know, what am I supposed to do? And the answer was, you're supposed to participate. You're supposed to get involved in the conversation and be supportive, not as someone who's personally experienced racism, but as someone who can speak out against racism from a position of privilege. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. And I really appreciate the People's Institute for what they brought. I know they're going to be coming regularly here. They only come when they're invited, which is really interesting. They don't just show up. They have to be invited, but they've been invited a lot, and they're going to get invited again.
Beautiful.
Great.
As we wrap up, Kevius, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I know we're approaching the 3 o'clock mark, but I think as you both just expressed, what the solution is, you know, is to have a voice. And this idea that is embedded in the current is this idea of reciprocity. Is we do everything with mutual benefits. And that's something missing from society, and something that's missing, it was missing from the social economic, you know, the social science that is economics, is the social part. So I think you two just touched on that, as how, with Frank, how do we engage as humans? And how do we make space for each identity? And then with David is, okay, now that we're all at the table, how are we in this for ourselves and each other equally? So I think we're on the precipice of something amazing here, starting with creating a whole new system of the economy, which we're you know, doing slowly but surely, and I think is really amazing to be a part of, creating a system where everyone has a voice, everyone has a stake, where we can look years from now at the Hudson Valley and say our kids are in a different place now, because we're setting up a new system. But
Great.
Thank you. I do want to touch on part of what makes that system possible, and those are our sponsors. So I will head over to the screen. And
Wait, before you do, Frank, can you tell us your website and contact info?
You could, we're redoing our site, but KingstonMidtownRising.org. You can check it out. We have a new initiative called Midtown Rising Connect, hoping to launch July 1st. So we'll be able to contact individuals and share resources with them that they're looking for within the Kingston area, primarily focused on Midtown. So Kingston Midtown Rising, or you can reach me at 845-219-5400, 219-5400.
Thanks, Frank. And now a word from our sponsors. Actually, Kevius said it's not pulling up right now. So I'll just give a shout out to Kenco Outfitters on Route 28 in Kingston, just outside of the city. Amazing outdoor place to get camping gear, great clothing. It's very high quality. It's a little expensive, but that's because it's the real cost of those goods. They support locals and organic, fair trade, things like that. Saunders Kill Farm Market out in Accord. It's a 12th generation farm. They are amazing people. I highly suggest making the trip if you're from Kingston. And we also give a shout out to the O Positive mental health hotline. Check out O Positive Festival through Google, and you'll find their link to the mental health hotline. Did I miss anyone, Kevius?
I think you hit them on the nose, and if folks want to find out more, I'll make the information available on our page.
Wonderful. Well, we'll see you next Friday on Livelihood News. But if you'd like, put it in your calendar every day next week at 5 p.m. Tune in to our Facebook Live page, and we'll also be on YouTube talking about money all week at 5 o'clock for 45 minutes. Thanks for joining us, Frank.
Thanks for having me. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Bye, everyone.